Hey, Perfect Spirit. I'm Sam Shelley, the Miracle Man. Now let's create a miracle in your life. So today I want to talk about, feeling bad about feeling bad and how do we get ourselves out of that state. So how many out there have dealt with this depression, this anxiety, this just low feeling and maybe suicidal? I know when I was suicidal in my 20s, I had to be institutionalized or hospitalized twice so I didn't kill myself because I took all these thoughts as my truth. And that's really what it is. It's all these thoughts, these beliefs, these opinions that are creating this darkness. It feels like you're really buried in a deep dark hole and there's no way out. This is why I really encourage people to learn these practices before you get yourself into that state, because it is harder to get out of that once you're really in that darkness, because you just can't snap out of it. You just can't go like, poof, it's gone. If that was that easy, we would have no mental illness in society. But unfortunately, with the lockdowns and everything else that's going on right now, there's a lot of increases in suicide, depression, because we're just being suppressed. We're not free. So we feel like we're trapped. We're mentally trapped in our beliefs, opinions, and then they're fueling us with more fear, more worries, more concerns about new mutations, variants, and all that stuff. So how do we get out of that? Because you just can't really snap out of it. It's really a practice to see that these thoughts, these opinions, these beliefs are not the absolute truth. No matter how much you believe it to be true, it's not true. Because if it was true, it would be a universal truth. It would apply to everyone. And typically our beliefs and opinions don't apply to everyone. So it's not the great truth. That great truth is that peace, that silence of bound right here, right in our heart. But for now, we just need to relax and just examine our emotions, our feelings, and see how the mind is attaching to that as your truth. I wish someone told me, when I was really in the midst of everything. And even my psychiatrist that I saw for, 15, 20 years, it was a long time that I saw him. He never once said to me, "Oh, do you realize you have thoughts, but you are not your thoughts. You are not your beliefs. You are not your opinions." He never said that to me. He's like, here's another pill. Take this. Take that. But we don't stop and realize and examine, what's the cause of this sadness, this despair. It's because we're attached to some belief, some opinions, some thoughts that are not serving us. This is why I created Head Trash Anonymous, because the mind is addicted to the pain, to the suffering, to this inner dialogue. It's just addicted to it because the mind is comfortable with being uncomfortable. The mind hates the unknown. It really does not like that, so it'd rather stick with something it knows, a known entity. So it's really learning to get yourself back into this moment as best you can without judgment, without criticism of yourself. So when you feel bad about feeling bad, that's a judgment, that's a criticism that you need to let go, because you're doing the best that you can here in this moment, according to your level of presence, if you will. Are you more up here? Are you more here in this moment? So where are your feet right now? Where are your hands right now? You see this computer screen in front of you. Now notice what holds that. What's the frame around the screen? Is it plastic? Is it metal? It's all these little details that we don't notice. That's what pulls you into this moment. So you don't need to sit in meditation for hours a day. You just need to be mindful as you go throughout the day. Just notice these little details that you may not notice before, that you take for granted. Like when you get a fork from the kitchen, do you notice the weight of the fork, the material of the fork, the temperature of the fork. If it's metal, is it hot? Is it cold? All these little nuances, these details we miss because we're caught up in these stories that are keeping us in this state of despair, anxiety. All that head trash, it really needs to go. So I really encourage everyone to do this practice before despair hits. If despair hits, then just come back to this moment to the best of your ability. Reach out, ask for help. Ask for, help to keep yourself present. Not to medicate, but to keep yourself present here in this moment, that you're getting lost in these details. Get yourself back here. Maybe it's holding an ice cube. Maybe it's taking a cold shower. Maybe it's listening to a piece of music that really energizes you, uplifts you. Or maybe it's a movie, a book, whatever it is. What is that one thing that will help ease the noise here? Because we always want to distract. It's easy to distract. It's like, I have all this, but you can distract yourself from it, but it's still not dealing with the emotional core, the emotional root. So if you're feeling like you want to harm yourself, then maybe you need to distract yourself so you don't attach to those beliefs. But ultimately, it's facing those inner demons, those thoughts, those opinions, those beliefs that are not serving you. Ultimately, they need to be pulled out. They need to be ripped out of you. You need to declutter that mental junk drawer. And I'm doing a workshop on this on the 10th about decluttering the mental junk drawer. And you can find out more at the headtrashanonymous.org site. If you type off 5 off, you get 5 off a ticket. And we'll be going from like 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time to about 9:15 p.m. Eastern Time to talk about, this state of despair that we can get ourselves into and why it's important to declutter that mental junk drawer. Because life is going to constantly throw challenges at you. But when you're rooted in your core, these challenges won't grab you. You won't be so emotional. You'll be a little bit detached. You won't be caught up in all that energy, that emotion. Because, facing suicide is not encouraged because it's a very, very dark place. And you really need somebody to pull you back into this moment. You really go down that rabbit hole. So just notice these details like the screen. What's holding this screen in place in front of you? Plastic, metal, hot, cold. And just engage those little details. And this is very simple. The mind doesn't believe this will work because it's too simple. We're told that life is difficult and complex. That's a story. It's not the truth. The way to the truth is through simplicity. The simplicity of this moment, just as it is, with no mental demands on how it should be. Because the mind's always protesting against this moment, which creates a lot of stress, a lot of despair, a lot of things that are not helpful. So we want to reduce the stress in the body as much as possible. Because if you're really anxious and worried today, that stress is going to impact your health in the future. That's a known fact, that stress impacts health. So even in your later years, you can still reduce that stress and improve your longevity. Like, stress is the silent killer. And we forget that because we get lost in the despair, the story, the anxiety, the worry. But we can let all that go. Maybe not as quick as a snap of a finger, but we can work toward that practice. I know I can get myself out of that place fairly quickly today, but I've been practicing for 10 years. So the mind might grab you for a few minutes, but then you reel it back. But you don't judge yourself. You don't condemn yourself about it. You just keep going. The whole objective is just to keep going. Keep taking that next step, the next step. Maybe it's a phone call. Maybe it's talking to someone. Maybe it's doing something. To realize nothing changes without action. You just can't sit there and think of a way. You have to physically take action. Okay, I'm going to mindfully look at this object. I'm going to mindfully feel where my feet are. what words I'm hearing, what sounds I'm hearing, what I'm touching. And it's really that simple practice. So don't judge yourself for feeling bad ultimately. That's just life. That's just the mind doing what the mind does. So that's all I want to talk about today. Let me know if you have any questions, any concerns. Ultimately, I want to know how I can best help you. I suffered for nearly 40 years. You don't need to suffer that long. You don't need to deal with this inner dialogue that's constantly beating you up. We can let that go. All right, well, take good care of yourself, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye for now.